So, if you've been trying to figure out the US housing market lately, you've probably felt like you're staring at a puzzle where none of the pieces fit, right? I mean, sales are way down, but prices aren't really crashing. So, what is going on? Well, today we're going to dive deep into the numbers and finally make sense of this crazy gridlock and the paradox at the heart of the market.
All right, let's jump right in. The big picture for the housing market across the country can really be boiled down to one word: stuck. Seriously. For years now, the whole system of buying and selling has just slowed to a crawl. It's a state of gridlock we're all still feeling.
And look, this is not some new thing that just happened. This quote from our source material at Wolf Street just nails it. It says we're entering the fourth year of this deep freeze in the resale market. 4 years. That's a really persistent slowdown. And let's put a number on this, okay? We're talking about an annual rate of just 3.75 million sales for single-family homes. Now, to give you some perspective, that number is so low, it's basically at the same level we saw during the last major housing bust. Yeah, it's a historically low level of activity. This is not a tiny dip either. If you compare it to the more, normal market we had right before the pandemic hit, sales have absolutely plummeted by 22%. That is a huge chunk of market activity that has just vanished. And if you think that's rough, just look at the condo and co-op market. Oh man, the situation there is even more dramatic. Sales are down a whopping 32% from where they were in 2019, hitting record lows. That part of the market has just been hammered. So, the logical next thought is, well, with sales this terrible, it has to be a buyer's market, right? I mean, with so few people buying, sellers should be getting desperate, prices should be dropping, but it's not quite that simple. And here is the twist in the story. While sales are way down in the basement, the actual supply of homes for sale is going up. We're now at 4 months of supply for single-family homes. That's the highest it's been for a November in years. For condos, it's 5.6 months, the highest since the housing bust era. So more and more homes are just sitting there unsold.
So this all leads us to the big central puzzle. We've got sales at rock bottom levels and supply at its highest point in years. Basic economics 101 would scream that prices should be in a free fall. But when we look at the national numbers, that's not what's happening at all.
Get this. For single-family homes, the national median price is actually up 1.2% compared to this time last year. Now, it's not a massive jump, but think about it. With sales figures that bad, it is definitely not the price crash you'd expect to see. And remember the condos where sales fell off a cliff? Well, the median price is only down a measly 1.5%. That's it. It's such a tiny dip, it feels totally disconnected from what's happening with sales volume. And that's the bottom line right here. We're living in a price paradox. Sales have been absolutely crushed, but a big nationwide price collapse, it just hasn't happened. The two biggest signs of a housing market's health are telling us completely different things. So how on earth do we solve this thing? Well, the answer isn't in those national stats. The secret is that there really isn't one single US housing market. The story is playing out totally differently depending on what city you're in. I mean, just look at this. It's a tale of two completely different cities. Over in Austin, Texas, prices have dropped a whopping 24% from their peak. The market there is correcting from this absolutely insane price explosion. But then you look at Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and what's happening? Prices are actually up 4.1% from last year. That's one of the biggest jumps of any large city in the country. And this is exactly why those national headline numbers can be so misleading. That national average just blends everything together. It takes Austin's big correction and Milwaukee's big gains and mushes them into one number that honestly tells you almost nothing about what's actually happening where you live. Okay, but there is one part of this whole story that is a truly national trend, and that's the sales slump. While the price changes are super local, that collapse in buying activity, that's happening everywhere. Our source material has a really powerful term for this: demand destruction. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's what happens when crazy high prices and high mortgage rates just push buyers completely out of the market. The demand, it gets destroyed. And you can see it right here. This demand destruction is hitting every single corner of the US. Sales are down 31% in the West compared to before the pandemic, down 27% in the Northeast, 24% in the Midwest, and 16% in the South. No region has escaped this slowdown. So after all that, the gridlock, the paradoxes, the demand destruction, what's the one big takeaway here? What does all this mean for you, whether you're thinking of buying, selling, or you're just trying to understand what's going on with the economy? This quote says it all perfectly. Every housing market dances to its own dynamics. There is no single story. The US isn't one housing market, it's thousands of little individual markets, and each one is moving to its own unique beat. So, the key here, the really important thing to remember is to think local. Just ignore the national median price, it's mostly noise. Instead, you've got to focus on the sales numbers and the supply levels in your specific city or your neighborhood. That's what's going to tell you the real story. Because as we've just seen, your local story might be the exact opposite of the national one. And all this leaves us with one last kind of provocative question to chew on. In a market this divided, where one city is booming and another is busting, does the whole idea of a national housing price even mean anything anymore? Something to think about the next time you see one of those headlines.